Okay, so we're going to talk today about the 5 stages of rebooking. Whenever I talk about this concept with massage therapists, I always want to put it in the context that it doesn't have to be salesy and it doesn't have to be adverse to being therapeutic. In fact, the way that I teach rebooking is that the only time you should ever ask a client to come back is if you have a therapeutically valid reason for them to do so. Luckily, there are lots of those, and we'll get into that. But today I just want to introduce the idea of the 5 stages, and in subsequent videos we're going to go over each stage in much more detail. So the first stage is first impressions. And what does that mean? It's your website, your social media presence, your business photos, the language you use on your website, the language you use on business cards. It's also what your office feels and looks like when the client walks in the door, what you feel and look like when the client walks in the door. So if you walked in and I just kind of like was sitting at my desk working at stuff and you sat down and I went like that and went, yeah, I'll be right with you, right? That's a bad first impression, right? You want to be warm, inviting, meet people. Hi, welcome to Bodyworks. Nice to meet you. What brings you in today? So that's the first stage. If you have anything off-putting in that stage, it might turn off some clients. You won't be perfect. There's no way to appeal to everybody at all, but you really want to look through all your materials and find if there are some things that really are going to put off people in general and smooth those out. So the second stage is intake. A lot of therapists skip over intake. They have the client just come in, get on the table, get to work, and think that they're just going to find out what the client is dealing with during the session. I really promote the ideas of 5 to 8 minutes in intake at the minimum, no more than 10. And you really want to try to figure out, A, what brought them in. Bodyworks, my business or my studio, is a results-based practice. We're really looking to work on pain management, not just give a nice massage, although that's perfectly therapeutically valid if that's your practice. But you really want to find out what they would like to work on in the session and try to see if you can figure out ways that can help them. This is where you would take their case history, take their current symptoms, talk about how long they've been there, talk about what level they're at, where they're showing up, maybe try to elicit historical things that may have caused it, older injuries, how long the pain's been present, right? And then you also want to potentially do stuff like I do in my practice of having them stand up, doing some postural analysis, looking for ways that this and that and that and that all correlate to each other and building a treatment plan. That gets a little more advanced and we have classes on that. But at the minimum, you want to find out what they think they want to get out of the session and then make a plan to offer that they can get that with you. Then the third stage is the treatment itself. I highly recommend that in this stage you have an agreement with your client over what that will be. Whether it is, yeah, I'm here for a nice massage, I'm a little sore from running, can you do a little bit of everything? Great, we'll do a nice full body today. Or, no, actually, I'm really having shoulder pain and neck pain, can you focus more on those today, right? And then you want to have a plan. Well, okay, if we just want to focus on that, I'm going to spend some time on your back, I'm going to spend some time on your hips. I might not do the backs of your legs. I'm going to turn you over and maybe work up the midline and then into the neck and shoulders to finish. That might be one way of creating a treatment plan that you present to the client in that kind of brief way, and then hopefully get them to say, hey, that sounds great. Or you might get, that sounds great, but you know what, this foot's been bothering me too. Can we look at that today? And you might say, either yes, we could look at that today, or you might say, well, we could, but that might not allow me to really get much done up here. Which one do you want more focus on, or which one's more important to you? But you really want to come up with an agreement for the treatment here before you get them on the table. Then you actually do the treatment, and there's all sorts of things that you can be doing during the treatment to make sure that the client's A, satisfied with your work, B, feeling like you're doing good work that will have results for them, and C, actually getting results. And then we'll talk about that in subsequent videos. The fourth stage that a lot of therapists also skip out on is outtake. And that means following up with them after the session, potentially doing more postural analysis to see what's improved or not improved or changed, giving them some homework, exercises, stretches, relaxation exercises, strengthening exercises, postural correction exercises, those sorts of things. You might want to give them a few pieces of homework so that they can learn something from the session. And hopefully, in this stage, you're also going to come up with a follow-up treatment plan of maybe 3 to 8 sessions, or even just, this is what I would work on next time. But you want to give an idea that you actually have a vision for what to do next with the client. If you're just vague about that or wishy-washy and just, oh, you should come back, that doesn't really give them enough to feel confident that you're going to actually do something with them. Even if the plan is that should feel much better today, but we should follow up and do the same thing again in 2 weeks, and then again a third time, that's still a plan that they can then agree or disagree with. If you don't give them a plan, they don't know what they're agreeing to if they want to come back, and that's going to put the onus on them to figure out whether or not it's worth their time. And then the last stage is follow-up. And writing sideways is interesting. So in follow-up, well, first in outtake, you want to ask, hey, is it okay if I follow up with you? Right? You want to get that permission from the client, because every once in a while the client's going to say, no, that's okay. I'll let you know if anything happens. And you want to respect that. By asking for permission here, they also know that you're going to follow up with them. And then in, let's say, 2 to 3 days, you want to send an email, send a text, something that asks them, hey, how are you feeling after our session? How's the homework going? Especially if they haven't booked a future session. Hopefully an outtake where you're doing things like checking them out, having them pay, you actually can get them rebooked here. But if you don't, you definitely want to follow with them, because that may be the place to pick them up again and have them go, you know, I wasn't so sure about you, but now 2 or 3 days later, I really am feeling better, and now I trust you, and now I'd love to come back. And if you don't follow up with them, you force them to have to do it, as opposed to you reaching out and supporting them in their process. So those are the 5 stages, and there's a whole bunch of skills under each of these bullet points that we're going to get into in subsequent videos that can help you improve each of these. But my advice is, if you're not feeling like your clients are rebooking with you, or your schedule is not full in the way you would like, check in. Are you doing something in each of these areas? And a lot of people, when I run over this concept, will say, oh, you know what, I never do outtake. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's start you doing something there. Or they'll say, I never do intake. Or they'll say, well, I do those things, but I can't quite get people to sign up, and I don't bother to follow up. Right? You know, I've had clients rebook with me here when they walk in the door, partly because they know that my next opening is 3 months from now. And they're like, I got this opening 2 months ago, and I've heard all these great things about you, and now I want to make sure that I snag 5 slots on your calendar before they go away. That happens, not all the time. Sometimes it happens here. Mostly it happens here. And I have a whole habitual way of just talking through each of these concepts with every client that walks in. Just to give you an idea, in the past 5 years, 3 out of 4 clients that get on my table have come back to see me. Right? It's not perfect. Nobody can be perfect. Some of those clients are tourists and just in town for a day, so who knows, maybe it's 85%, I have no idea. But it's high enough that I'm booked 3 months ahead. So, listen to what I have to say. We'll cut that. But